Hello all, another bunch of tools I picked out for review courtesy of Banggood. I have to admit, I'm finding it more difficult to find tools that look interesting, of decent quality and of course potentially useful. But I had high hopes for this lot, which includes a 400mm framer square, a metric wedge device for measuring gaps, a rolling digital measure that can be set to metric or imperial, and a carbide blade scraper tool. I'll put jump points in the description and, as usual, give you the good, the bad and the ugly about them as I see it. Starting with what I definitely call the good, not to say the others are necessarily bad and the ugly, we have this replaceable carbide blade scraper tool. First impressions out the box of this are good. Not really a surprise, as it has the Hongdui name on it, the same brand as the Curve Maker tool and the depth gauge I reviewed not so long ago and were of excellent quality. I especially like the Curve Maker. So in the box you get the scraper itself and a little Torx wrench for the blade fixing screw. A neat little bonus is a spare screw is supplied fixed in the bottom of the tool. How thoughtful. The tool has great ergonomics and is comfortable to hold in the left or right hand. The finish, a powder coat I think, on the aluminium body helps with the comfort and seems of good quality too. Feels very smooth yet resilient. In the handle, a brass or brass coloured thumb screw secures and hides another blade. Out of the box, the blade fitted to the tool is square. The second blade is a slightly contoured one. At the head of the tool, a gold coloured aluminium fixing is for blade setting. This is reversible, and if I take it off, you should be able to see that one face is flat for setting the square blade, the other slightly curved to match and set the contour blade. A simple enough thing, but useful for setting the blades properly and stopping it from spinning when you tighten. Of course, these types of carbide blade are readily available, being popular in turning tools and in a variety of shapes. Some round ones might be useful for this tool. On the multi-sided ones like these, you also have 4 sides to use before needing to replace or sharpen. Put back together, the contoured blade perfectly seated and ready to go. The other blade can be stowed back in the handle. In use it does exactly what you'd expect it to, seen here scraping off a fine layer of the plastic coat on my bench top. I've since used it for cleaning up glue squeeze out, epoxy and removing old finish. Just a simple tool made well. Not a cheap tool selling for around $26 on Banggood, but be in no doubt this is a quality tool. Looked after, no reason why it wouldn't be a tool for life, especially as it has no rubber overmoulding to degrade like similar scrapers on the market. This one I think I can recommend with no misgivings. So when I saw this little gap measuring wedge thingy, as long as it was ballpark accurate, I knew it would be going straight into the tool belt. The amount of time something like this would have come in handy. The business end of it is a wedge of nicely machined and clearly etched brass. It then appears the accountants oversaw the rest of the production. In the wedge there's a little groove at either side in which runs a gold coloured aluminium stop or indicator. At the back, the cheapest, nastiest black plastic handle I've seen or felt on anything. I mean, putting that on a nice piece of brass is an insult. Anyway, not a tool that really needs instructions. You pop the wedge in a gap, move the indicator to the face and take your reading. The etchings are in millimetre with 0.2mm fraction marks. Between the first and second fraction, this is telling me the gap is about 4.3mm. Measured with the verniers, it reads 4.12 or 4.13mm. A tenth or so difference. That's not bad to be honest. The nearest mil or half mil would be fine for my needs. While I have the verniers out, worth checking how close the millimetre markings are measured on the mark itself. Wherever I measured, the verniers read the markings as between 3 to 500 shy. That's pretty damn close. The wedge part of the tool is worth the nigh on $8 price I reckon. I'll probably ditch the little indicator and plastic handle, maybe make a nice wooden handle for it. I'll definitely be taking this one out on jobs with me though. I was quite excited to review this digital measuring tool. Should it work well, I could see all sorts of applications for it. It has a few neat functions which the all Chinese instructions didn't help me access at all, but fear not, with the help of an app all has been revealed, and if you can bear it I'll run through for you. If not, skip to the 10-minute mark to just hear what I think of it. Well packaged in a nice foam insert, for $19 you get the measure and a USB to Type 3 charging cable. I do like kit with a built-in battery. To turn it on, you hold the centre button on the front for 2 to 3 seconds. When it comes to life, you're greeted with nice, clear white backlit readouts. At the bottom, a white light indicates the centre of the roller wheel for measuring. On the screen, large numbers show your main reading, smaller numbers above it, your secondary reading. At the top, a battery status indicator, and to the left of that, a function icon. On the bottom is a rubber wheel, and on the right, a charging port, all wrapped in what seems an aluminium case with black plastic back and front faces. Basically, you roll it along and it measures as you go, then hit the centre button to 0. To turn it off, press and hold the centre button. To enter the settings mode, press and hold the centre button as you would to turn it on, but keep the button depressed until you see boot appear. Hitting the left or right button on boot will allow you to change metric to imperial, and vice versa. Hit the centre button again and ACC shows where you can set the accuracy. Somewhat pointless in metric, so just keep it on 100. Again, if you want to change the parameters, use the left or right buttons. Centre button again to jog along and SPE appears. This is to turn the speaker on or off. Beeps basically. I'll turn them back on using the left or right buttons just to show you the difference. Lastly, centre button again for LIG or light. This sets how long the backlit stays on, from 5 to 120 seconds I think. It's set to 30 as standard. The tool will automatically turn off after 3 minutes unused, by the way. This isn't adjustable. So press the centre button again and we've exited settings mode and back on the home screen. A useful feature this has is that it will automatically save the last 10 readings. You can access these at any time by hitting the left or right buttons to scroll through. Centre button again to return you home for a new reading. If we go in a bit closer, I can show you the modes. You change the mode by pressing the left or right button simultaneously. At present, the 2 dashes in a line show it's an open-ended mode. Say to measure an island worktop in the kitchen edge to edge. Hold the left and right button together for the next mode, which by its U-shape indicates an enclosed mode, like inside a drawer, or to stay with the kitchen example, measure a worktop with a wall at either end. Next mode is enclosed left, open right, and the next mode the same but opposite. What these modes are allowing for is the width of the measurer itself. Enclosed adds the full width, partially enclosed half width. The fifth and last mode is radius mode. Roll around a half circle and it will display a radius. Roll around a full circle and it gives you the diameter. Sorry, I know this is all a bit dry, but with instructions being in Chinese, I thought it worth going through. So let's see it in use. Here in open-ended mode, you line the centre line up to the edge and roll the measure to the other edge, or wherever you want to stop. Here I got a reading of 709mm, which is pretty close to the 710 I know this benchtop to be. This was, however, as close as I got to 710 from several attempts. I was getting a slightly different reading every time. Next, I'll look at the enclosed mode. As I said earlier, this mode allows for the width of the machine between enclosed sides, as obviously the centre mark can't get to the edge of what you're measuring. You can see here, start to roll, and it adds 5.5 centimeters straight away, the width of the measurer. As I run it between the rails of my router sled, it measures 646mm. I know these to be accurately set to 640mm, and again, several attempts to measure gave different results, non-bang on 640. I persist anyway and try enclosed left mode, going from the right edge of my bench to the inside left face of my router sled rail. It reads 694mm, my tape measure tells me it's dead on 690. Pretty exacerbated with this now, I try radius mode. This is after all what I was hoping to use this for. I've marked a line on this roll of tape as a guide. After rolling it around the circumference, the small number on the secondary readout tells me the diameter is 87mm. My tape measure told me it was 92mm, so a disappointment. I've done some other tests on this and it does appear bang on accurate. It's calibrated just fine. The problem appears to be how it's used. By this I mean it doesn't matter how accurate it's calibrated if, in using the tool, slight wobbles are registered, wheel slips occur losing a mil or two, or if meeting a wall or edge, if you've lent the tool off a perfect centre axis, it can't help but give you the wrong measurement. As such, in a human hand and on imperfect environments, this tool is impossible to use, and as such, no way I can recommend this. Let's see if this review session could be redeemed by looking at this framer square. In metric only, this is available in two length options, 250mm or 400mm, and priced at $22 to $25 respectively. I've got the 400mm one here. The back of the pack assures us all sorts of functionality, so let's have a look. The stock is cast in aluminium, and on either side features rests for 30-degree marking. You can also see the little flip-out steel tab for resting on the workpiece, and the indent above for angle marking we'll look at shortly. On the stock side of the steel rule, measurements start right from the face of the stock. On the other side, measurements starting from the back of the stock. It also has the obligatory 45-degree bevel on the stock too. The rule has large 2mm holes for mechanical or carpenter's pencils capable of holding together, marking out framing timbers. These appear at every centimetre, with others for indicating 10, 15, 22.5, 30, 45 and 60-degree angles. At the other end of the rule, the measurements seem to run to 361 on the inside, 401 on the outside. The extra 1mm more down to what I'd call the adequate rather than precision finish on the steel rule. Its edges are fairly sharp at that. I must be honest, my main reason for choosing this square was just to have a large square with a tab to support the stock. If it's square and has that, I'll be happy, but we'll look at the other stuff too. No splaying of the lines at all with a flip and mark. So far so good. I quite like that the ruler is so wide on this, I've noticed. Helps it feel planted. I'm using the 10cm hole here with a standard but not sharp pencil. About 1/2mm out according to my tape, but I doubt that would be an issue with a 2mm pencil lead. Just my pencil being too small for the hole. A couple of lines using the 45 on the stock. Lines seem to match my combi, which I know is good just fine. So setting the 30-degree rest cast in the stock against the edge, as you can see, you get quite a gap between the surface and the rule. This will throw your line off when marking close to the stock. To look at that a little bit, I'll do a 30-degree line using the divot in the stock and the line indicating 30 degrees on the rule. Using the 30-degree stops in the stock up to that line, you should be able to see, especially if I go in a bit closer, the rule being lifted off the bench by the stock gives the impression of the line being out. I checked with my bevel gauge and it's a true 30 degrees, but this illustrates clearly that your pencil could wander due to the gap. Again, using the divot in the stock, I align the rule with the edge where it indicates 45 degrees. Checked with the combi, looks good. If you mark on the edge of your piece, then align the centre of the divot to that mark. You can use the hole at the angle indicators on the rule to mark a point. Then use the square's rule or a straight edge to join the marks, giving you your angle. Done with 45 degrees as an example, the line's accurate to my combi. There is a screw in the stock that suggests if this were out of true or goes out of true down the line, it could be reset. I haven't actually tried this, as thankfully mine came perfectly square out of the Plazzy bag it was delivered in. For me, this is exactly what I wanted from such a square. I'm happy with it as a useful addition to my kit, I think. But while I found this tool to be pretty accurate with its angle features, worth saying again, it is a framer's square for those slinging up roof trusses, timber frames and joists. It's not a micro precision tool some of us are fond of for the workshop and detailed carpentry or joinery. There are other squares better suited to those tasks. So quite a long video this one. Thanks if you stuck with it, and I hope the detail was worth it and helpful. Star of the show for me with this bunch was the scraper. If you've thought about one of these, treat yourself to this one. Gets a 10 out of 10 from me. The square I like too, a good one for knocking around on site with. Not the best finished on the edges of the steel rule, but that's a minor point really. The roller measure thing was gutting. So frustrating that, although it's accurate in a more controlled test, in use it just isn't. Its readings are all over the place and there's no way you could rely on it real world. The wedge measuring device I liked in as a keeper too, although I'm going to dispense with the China minim indicator and handle and just stick with the brass wedge. Hilarious little thing. Anyway, links to all these in the description if you're tempted or want a closer look, and thanks for watching.